a little ruckus.
Bam, do it.
Hi, this is Jorge Colón Delgado, and this is the Break It Down Show. Welcome.
Yes, this is 3 shows, by the way, today, fellas. I hope you guys can appreciate that. I love talking about baseball. We talked about Mexico and their troubles earlier today. And then we talked about AI robots and how you control them in a military setting. And now look at we're talking about Puerto Rican history of baseball and everything. I have a wonderful life. Thank you both for joining me on the show. I guess I'll bring Brian in real quick here and say, hey, Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Good,
Glad to
good.
be here talking to Jorge.
Yeah, have you read the book about Gaucho?
I have not. I just found out about it when he posted it.
All right, I'm going to put a link up here for everybody so you guys can get this. This book is available for free at baseball101.com. Jorge, tell us a little bit about the Gaucho book.
Well, this book was written by Tony Oliver. He's a Puerto Rican who lives in Sacramento, California. And he wrote about this ball player. He's the first Puerto Rican in the big leagues. He played with Newark in the Eastern Color League in 1926, and the Eastern Color League is one of the 7 leagues named Big Leagues in December 2020. So he wrote this almost 40 pages, and it was a gift. He said, "Hey Jorge, I have this for you. You do what you want with it." And I downloaded it in Baseball 101, and he made a English version, a Spanish version, and that's the most. I don't think nobody can do a work like that about Jose Gaucho Torres. It's incredible, and I hope that people that are listening now go to the site and read the book. This book about Jose Gaucho Torres, the first Puerto Rican in the big leagues.
Yeah, he's an interesting character.
Here's the link for Baseball 101. That's coming up right now. I'm going to switch my battery. You guys keep talking.
Yes, he was.
We're better looking than you anyway.
He was quite a character. He was very grumpy, and sadly, he died. They killed him in his house in Calle, Puerto Rico, 1963. But he was a grumpy man. But he was a great ball player. What happens is that when the Puerto Rico Professional Baseball League began in 1938, he was very old. And he played 4 or 5 years in the league with almost more than 40 years of age. So he was good. I would love to see him younger in our league. It happened to many ball players. Like Perucho Cepeda was another one, the father of Orlando Cepeda. When the league began, he was 32 years. So a lot of them were a little bit older. But with the person that we're talking about, Gaucho Torres, he was over 40 years. But he was one of the brightest stars in the decade of 20 in the 30s.
Yeah, and they were still kind of playing small ball then. Like he was kind of a fast, good defender, slash and dash kind of guy. He loved that style of play. He loved the bunt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Didn't like the home run.
No, he didn't hit home runs. But you're correct. That was the type of ball player he was. But there's another fact that ballparks were ballparks in Puerto Rico were not 325 or by the lines and 410 in the center field.
Right.
They were huge ballparks. So maybe because of that, they decided to play the short ball.
Definitely.
Because the first one that came here and didn't believe in distance was Josh Gibson. He hit home runs on all those big parks, but that was Josh Gibson. But yeah. But Gaucho Torres, Jose Gaucho Torres. Gaucho means that he doesn't have part of his ear. He lost part of his ear, and a person that doesn't have that part of the ear, they call him Puerto Rico Gaucho. That's
Got
the
your
nickname.
Something.
That's the nickname.
Okay, that's funny.
And
Yeah.
maybe that was a fight.
I thought it was a fight in the army. What didn't it say?
Yes.
Yeah,
Maybe. He went to the army too in the First World War.
yeah. It
So
seems like a lot of Puerto Ricans served in the United States military back then,
yes, a
wasn't it?
lot. Well, that was the reason they gave us the U.S. citizenship, so we could go to the First World War.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yes,
Huh?
that's, and they gave us the citizenship in 1917, and a lot of Puerto Ricans went to the First World War, then Second World War, all the wars, Korea, all the wars of the United States since the First War, 1917. Puerto Rican has taken part. A lot of Puerto Rican have taken part, and we have lost a lot of men in the war.
Yeah, I noticed that reading about how Puerto Ricans were so influential in baseball across the Caribbean, and it seemed like they were always involved in the military somehow. You know?
Yes, Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico developed. Puerto Ricans developed so fast. In 1898, we played the first official game. 1898. In 1913, a team from the Ponce High School, defeated the All American, the first team that comes from the United States to Puerto Rico. So we're talking about how many years? 13, 15 years. In only 15 years, we were playing against Americans and we were defeating them. So I think, my opinion, Puerto Ricans were born to play baseball. This is the sport that we dominate. And then came the Yankees in 1947, and Ponce defeated the Yankees a day like tomorrow, 79 years ago.
Oh,
And 12-8, Ponce defeated the New York Yankees, and it was the real, the team A, not the team B, team A, with
right.
the regular players. So Puerto Ricans have played, have done a lot. We have a lot of history, a lot of history unknown to the United States and all these scholars in the United States. And I think we talked about this in the first program we had, that there's a lot of interest in Cuban baseball, but not so much of Puerto Rico. Right now, since 2020 to 2026 is when most we are talking about Puerto Rico in the United States. Because programs like yours, you have Adam Dabrowski from Baseball Reference. He's doing capsules every day about different ball players from Puerto Rico, Cuba, etc. But there's a lot of interest right now in the Caribbean in general. Because before it was only Cuba, now they're talking about Venezuela, we're talking about Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, and every country of the Caribbean deserves to be known, because every country did good for baseball in the United States, and with all those ball players who came to Puerto Rico in the winter.
Yeah, Puerto Rico had a lot of different guys from a lot of different places.
And those ball players that came to Puerto Rico, and we treated them like what they were, human beings. And those 4 months that we went in Puerto Rico, October, November, December, January and February, 5 months in Puerto Rico was paradise. And they came here, the ones that came year after year. You have a Wheeler Brown playing 10 years here in Puerto Rico, Bob Thurman 10 years in Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rican, that
Willard Brown.
Yeah, Willard Brown. That was the first Afro-American to hit a home run in an American League with the San Luis Browns. Here he's a hero in Puerto Rico. 350 lifetime, 101 home runs. He won the Triple Crown 2 times. Leads the league in slugging, 603. 350 lifetime batting average. Well, he was tremendous offensive machine.
Yeah.
And you have Bob Thurman, that was the original version of Shohei Ohtani.
Ooh.
Bob Thurman.
Tell us about Bob Thurman.
Yes, Bob Thurman. Not only he batted fourth, he leads the Puerto Rican League in home runs and RBIs, 120 lifetime and 566, and he won as a pitcher 39 games. So
Yeah.
that was Ohtani.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two were pretty dominant down there. And then one of my favorite secret players, Buster Clarkson.
Oh, Buster Clarkson.
I like Buster Clarkson a lot. Yeah, he's from Pennsylvania, and so am I. And then he played in Puerto Rico. He played all over the place. He never really got to settle down anywhere, but he was really good in Puerto Rico.
Yes, he not only was a good player, he also was a good manager.
Mm-hmm.
Managed Santurce to win the Caribbean Series in 1953. As a matter of fact, he was the first manager of Roberto Clemente.
Oh, really? Oh, wow! I didn't even. Somehow I missed that, or maybe I forgot.
He was the first manager of Roberto Clemente, and those three ball players, Willard Brown, Bob Thurman, and Buster Clarkson, in Puerto Rico, in the past, when you name Willard Brown, you name the other two, and in that order.
Yeah,
Willard Brown, Bob Thurman, and Buster Clarkson.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about him before, but I'm a big fan of Perucho Cepeda too.
It's a shame that he didn't go to the United States.
Yeah.
But you're talking about shortstop that batted fourth in that time.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only Puerto Rican to bat 402 positions as a shortstop and as a first baseman. He lost the Triple Crown in 1939-40 with Josh Gibson because by one home run, 8-7. So if Josh Gibson didn't come to Puerto Rico that year, he will be the first Triple Crown winner. And he was very temperamental, and he knew that he received 3 invitations to go to the United States. Vic Harris, Clarence Palm, and Alex Pompes. The 3 of them invited him to go to the States because they, to see a shortstop hitting 400.
Yeah, back then.
Yeah. But he said to the 3 of them, he didn't go. Maybe he said yes and didn't report. He knew that he was going to have trouble in the United States because he liked to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time that they would tell him you cannot drink water there because that's for white, he was going to have a big fight, And so he didn't go to the United States, sadly.
Yeah, he knew it too. He said it out loud. Yeah, I can't go, he said.
Yes.
Yeah. For any Americans at home, like I would compare Perucho Cepeda to like an Archie Vaughan, if you want to think about what he might have been like in the major leagues. Vaughan was also kind of temperamental, great hitter for a shortstop,
yes,
etc. Moved off shortstop when he got old. That's a guy I would compare him to.
Yes, maybe Omar Garcia Parra in the modern times.
Yeah, yeah.
Omar Garcia Parra, but when the Puerto Rican Baseball League began, he was already 32 years.
Yeah.
And he was a very good friend of Josh Gibson. Orlando Cepeda told me once that the mother of Orlando said, "Hey, you have to take a shower, dress up because your father. There's some friends of your father are coming home," and one of them was Josh Gibson.
Oh.
And Orlando told me that he was so big that he got afraid of him because he never had seen a ball player so big and so strong. But he said that he was very nice and very polite. And when I asked Orlando when he hit the ball, he said, well, he hit the ball, it was like a ping pong. When he made contact, the ball went very, very fast. He had tremendous power. And he saw those ball players that were friends of his father, such as Page, Josh Gibson, Leon Day, all those old players, and he had very good memories of them. But particularly Josh Gibson, he told me that he got a when Josh Gibson stepped in the house, he got afraid, a little bit afraid. He was a kid,
Yeah.
9, 10 years.
We get the impression quite often that guys from the old days threw 85 miles an hour. But I know, like, when I read reports, contemporary reports, the players like, hey, this guy could throw the ball 300 plus feet. This guy threw the ball out of a stadium. I mean, these guys are throwing the ball well beyond 85 miles an hour. Are there any anecdotes like that where they had, because look, you put a bunch of baseball players together, they're going to start competing at something. They're going to try to throw a ball through a hole. They're going to try to throw it over the moon, all these kind of things. Do you have anything like that to kind of understand who was throwing fast in the early Puerto Rican baseball days?
Well, they weren't no speed guns. Maybe fast will be 85 to 90 miles per hour, but no more, not too much over 90 miles per hour. That was the figure in the United States, because I remember that they tell that Bob Feller threw over 90 miles per hour.
Right.
Besides Bob Feller, who else? Maybe Walter Johnson. Maybe.
Yeah,
No,
that's what I was gonna say.
you're talking about two. Well, who else? So
Satchel.
Satchel, really.
maybe Satchel 90 miles per hour, maybe. But that's what it was in that time. I don't like to. Well, I don't want to say that. I like to compare, but I have to be conscious that there were some conditions in that epoch and that era, and there's some conditions in this era. For example, in that era, white play against whites and blacks against what blacks. In this era, it's everyone, so it's more competitive right now.
Yeah.
They threw 90 miles per hour, but we don't know if with the food, the vitamins, the medicine, they could throw over 90 miles per hour. Let's take, for example, not the white players, but the black players who slept in cars, who, if they were going from Pittsburgh, let's say Pittsburgh to New York, between Pittsburgh and New York, any town that they visit, they play a game. So it was so difficult for all those black players. You don't know what they would have done with the condition that today players have. You don't know what, for example, Albert Pujols would have done in that era, because about the segregation,
Mhm.
the way they treated the ball players, the black ball players. So Pujols, Mookie Betts, all those players come from their house to the ballpark. They don't have to worry that they're not going to scream things to them. But these ball players worry a lot, and they suffer a lot, all the things that they heard. So there's no metric to see how it affected. That's the truth.
Right. And as far as you said about nowadays, it's black, white, and Latino. But the Puerto Rican League was pretty integrated back in the 40s, right? There was black, white, and Latino playing in Puerto Rico back then, right? The 40s.
Well, we were integrated since 1998. That helped us a lot, because we didn't see, and we don't see, black players and white players. For us, it's the same. That's why you see pictures about white people, white fans, touching the Negro players and lifting them up when they did something good. And you see the Negro players that they're not accustomed to that. You say, "What's this?" Because in the United States, it didn't happen. And you see when the governor of Puerto Rico in that time, let's say the 40s and the 50s, Luis Muñoz Marin, he invited all those black players, the ones that were selected to the All-Star game, to the governor's mansion to a dinner. Which of those black players went to the governor's mansion in their respective state?
Right.
So for the black players to go to the Fortaleza, the governor's house, for us it was something so natural. And there's a famous picture about a white woman giving a kiss to Willard Brown in the Fortaleza. That was in United States. You can do that. In Puerto
Yeah.
Rico, it was normal. And there are women that say that they only wanted to touch Willard Brown's arms. You see, so it is a different culture. We are different, and thank God we never suffer about we didn't have that segregation in Puerto Rico, and that allow us to see all those ball players equal to us, and we treated them like human beings, and they enrich our baseball, and
Yeah.
we learn about that. We learn about a lot of baseball with them. And imagine that those ball players wouldn't come to Puerto Rico. What would be the history of Puerto Rico baseball in Puerto Rico? It wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. Yeah, the Puerto Rican league was no joke. I mean, that league is better than any minor league. That league was better than any minor league in America at the time.
Yes.
The Puerto Rican league was way better than a minor league.
When you see a team like Ponce defeating Yankees, you have to be good. It was not luck. It was that they played better than the Yankees that day. It doesn't mean that they were better team than the Yankees, but that day they were better.
Yeah.
And the pitcher in that game was Raymond Brown, Negro Leaguer. He was 38 years.
Hall of Famer.
And he dominated the Yankees. And the two last innings, the 8th and the 9th, it was pitched by Jose Santiago. Jose Santiago, he's known in the Caribbean as Jose Pantalones Santiago. And he was only 20 years.
Nope.
And he pitched 0 in the 8th and the 9th inning. I got to ask him, Pantalones, how do you feel that day that the manager, your scale, gave you the ball in the 8th inning? And he was a cold person. He was cold-blooded. And he said it was another team for me. It didn't worry me. The Yankees to me was San Juan, Santurce. And that's why they call him Pantalones. Pantalones mean he had pants.
I figured.
So he was like that since he was young. He said it didn't affect me. I knew it was the Yankees, but it was another team. And they say when Ponce, because the game was in San Juan, when Ponce returned to Ponce in the night, there were 10,000 people in the plaza waiting for them.
Dang.
Pantalones was in a convertible car.
Nice.
And they just pick him up of the car over and took him over the car, over the windshield, and everybody began to hug him and congratulate him. The same with Raymond Brown. So to play in San Juan, to get to your town and be received by 10,000 persons in that era. We're talking about 1947. Tomorrow is the 79th anniversary of that game. And as a matter, I'm going to give you I don't know how you say a note when you say the notice or a news that is the first one that you're going to know. How is that? How you say that?
Inaugural?
No. Prime news or something.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a breaking news that's going to come tomorrow in Puerto Rico. Okay. Tomorrow in Puerto Rico. I began to write a book about that game.
You told me, yeah.
And I'm doing a documentary, a film about that game.
Nice.
Tomorrow I'm going to announce it in Puerto Rico. It's for 2027 for their 80th anniversary. Because that game, it's not that Ponce won to defeat the Yankees. It has other repercussions, other meanings, other very important meanings. And I'm exploring all the things that happen. And when the book begins in Panama when Larry McPhail, the president of the Yankees, says that he's going to do for the next spring training tour in the Caribbean, in Cuba, Venezuela, and Puerto Rico. That was in Panama in 1946, and I begin the book in that moment until the game, when Ponce defeated the Yankees. And I have a lot of pictures. I have all the newspapers. But as I investigate, analyze, things keep coming out, and I want people in Puerto Rico. Some people say yes, we defeated the Yankees. Other people say yeah, it was B team, because they don't know who were the regular Yankees in that moment. People think that the Yankees were Babe Ruth, Musial, Lou Gehrig, Laseri, but those guys were in the Yankees, and that's why they say it was a team B, but it was a good team. The world, it was the team A. So that book and that documentary short film is going to be about 20 to 30 minutes. It's going to bring up the truth about what the meaning of that game when Ponce defeated the Yankees.
Yeah, American teams didn't like to come down here and lose. They felt it kind of made the major league look bad, so they would send their best down a lot. Usually, most of the time, yeah. They learned that fast. They would just send, like in Cuba, they would just send kind of their second team down, and they would get killed, and then they'd have to bring Ty Cobb down, and they'd have to bring other guys down because it was embarrassing.
As a matter of fact, when Ponce defeated the Yankees, the New York Times made a 5 columns report. It's a shame that the Yankees lose in Puerto Rico with Ponce. And I have the newspaper, and they were very angry because of the defeat. They went to Panama, I told you, the year before, and they went 11-0.
Yeah.
And they thought that Puerto Rico was going to be the same, 5-0, and it was not the same. Puerto Rico, San Juan lost the first game, Caguas lost the second, but then Ponce defeated them in the third game.
When you think about the exploration of baseball in the early part of the century, in the early history of the game, you've got a lot of guys that maybe could have gone, maybe should have gone, but how realistic was it for them? Like some Puerto Rican kid, playing baseball probably has a great life. I mean, 10,000 people jumping up and down, going crazy. It's tough to leave that. We had the same thing here in the States where kids on the Pacific League, it was a major league, but they're getting paid just as much money. Why am I going to go 3,000 miles away to play somewhere where I may not fit in? And a lot of guys didn't, so they just came back and like, I'm just going to go. And you could make a good living playing semi-pro ball, whether you were a shipwright or anything. There wasn't a whole lot of need if you didn't want to go do that. Is that the same kind of thing as Puerto Rico? Like, were these guys bound to go, or I don't know? What are your thoughts?
No, I think in Puerto Rico it was like a process, and we didn't have, maybe until the 30s, ball players that could play in the big leagues, like Perucho Cepeda, for instance, but he was black. Then you have Francisco Coimbre, he was black. Emilio Navarro, those players were good, but they were black. And that segregation was what did not allow Puerto Ricans to succeed in the big leagues before. So we have to wait until Irán Bithorn in 1942 with the Chicago Cubs, a white guy, and Luis Olmo with the Dodgers, a white guy. So I think the color, the color of the skin was a big problem for us. It didn't allow Puerto Ricans to succeed before.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you had some success within the Negro leagues earlier than that, like in the early 30s, correct? And then in the 40s, it really picked up just across the map, I believe, right?
Yes,
Navarro.
Navarro, Francisco Coimbra was the best of all, and Luis Marquez. As a matter of fact, Luis Marquez was the first Negro signed by the Yankees. It was not a Afro American; it was a Puerto Rican Negro who was the first signed by the Yankees, Luis Marquez, and
Huh.
they sent him to Newark, AAA. But it wasn't until 1955 that Elston Howard became the first Afro American to play with the Yankees. But Luis Marquez was the first one in the organization. They had another one, but they didn't give him a chance because he was uh, Big Power, first baseman. He was I don't know the name. He was very happy, and the Yankees didn't like it the way he was. He was too happy, too secure. He didn't believe in the in laws. You know, the establishment. He was always fighting the establishment with a joke, but he was doing his things as it. You know, he had his own laws, and the Yankees lost. You know, trade him to Kansas City, and then they brought Bill Scorum, and I read the book about the integration of Major League, written by Rick Swain, a great book. And it says in the part of the New York Yankees, as a matter of fact, they were the 13th team to have a black player, and they say that Elston Howard was the kind of Negro player they wanted because Elston Howard was shy, introvert, not like Big Power that was extrovert, and Big Power liked to walk with white women, and he had a flashy Cadillacs, and he dressed flashy, and that didn't like it was not they didn't like that in the United States in that time, and he did it. So that was the reason the Yankees got rid of Big Power, and they waited until Elston Howard.
You when I spoke to you earlier, you were going to Sandy Alomar Sr.'s funeral, right?
Yes, a big funeral. Sandy Alomar was he was a gentleman. Every time I called him to ask him something, he always had, he was always nice to me, and I felt sad, very sad. I went to the funeral, and the other day when they to the cemetery. Both days I went to Salinas. I had to be with the family, and I remember him great. In my heart, I have great memories about Sandy Alomar. He was a great person, very humble, and you talked to him and he answered.
Yeah.
Very, he was great. He was great, and he was good as a ball player, and he was good as a manager.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah. Did his dad play?
No,
No.
the Sandy Alomar comes from a family, Alomar Conde, from the part of his mother Conde. There are a lot of ball players. Cefo Conde is the pitcher. Huito Conde, Ramon Conde, another Puerto Rican who had more than 3,000 hits in baseball all around. And Cefo Conde,
who's that?
Ramon Conde. He played briefly with the White Sox, but he had more than 3,000 hits in organized baseball. And you have Cefo Conde. He was a pitcher, the 30s and 40s, a good pitcher. And there's a lot of although that family is one of the royal families of Puerto Rico. In royal
Conde looks like a Alomar. Like
yes.
there's a striking resemblance. Here, I'll put his link up here, everybody. Wow, that's shocking how much he looks like.
Yes. Sorry, you cut out. So Conde is a relative of the Alomars.
Yeah, because this is Santo Alomar Conde.
Oh, okay. All right.
Take a look at that. If you guys are on Baseball
Wow.
Reference, take a look at Ramon Conde.
That's Ramon.
Conde. Yeah,
Conde.
he looks a lot like. Yeah, I mean Roberto especially. That's crazy. You can see the family resemblance in a second.
Raking in AAA ball.
Yeah. When these guys
Wow.
are trying to make a living, what does that look like? Are there endorsement deals? How do they get paid in the early 1900s?
Oh, they had to
Yeah.
they had to play. There were no endorsement,
Right.
and mostly in the early part of the 20th century was playing for free.
Wow.
They
Yeah,
didn't get
Gaucho said how it was ideal. They call it the romantic era, right?
correct. They began to get paid 1938, 20, 30, $40 a week.
Did the
And was that
establishment
enough
of
money?
Huh?
Was that enough money to get by back then?
Don't think so.
Okay.
Because
that's one of our things here is we think American ball players were broke. But if you were any kind of a regular contracted ball player, you made more money than anybody who's working a job, you know.
Yes.
But we think these guys all had to be milkmen in the off season, and that wasn't the norm. But I know Brian and I have talked about this a bunch of times. I didn't know if that translated to Puerto Rico because you still got to sell tickets and get money coming in the door to make money.
Yes, but they had jobs. I know Pedro Cepeda worked in different. For example, Pedro Cepeda worked in different jobs. He had different jobs, and he complemented what he did as a ball player with the jobs he did he had, because they pay him only, let's say $30-$40, but that was for the season, 4 months. After that, no more pay. So they had to work.
Okay. Yeah.
They had to work. It was very difficult. When I talk about the Negro players, it's a shame that they had to suffer so much, only because they were different color of the skin.
Right.
Because they couldn't give their children, their family, a good home, education, food, only because they were black. And it makes me, every time I talk about that, it makes me mad and it makes me sad at the same time, because they didn't allow those ball players to see action in the big leagues. And if they would allow those ball players to see action in the big leagues, the numbers would have been different. I can assure you that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
When the guys who were in between, who were maybe more white or whatever, and played, again, was there a desire for those guys to go to America? How was the path for them, the guys who could pass and get through? The other thing is interesting. When I read Felipe Alou's book, he didn't know he was black. He showed up in America and like, oh, you're black. And he's like, I am. And then the black player's like, that guy's not black. So he was like in this weird spot. And Felipe I don't know if you've ever read this thing, Jorge. He wrote this treatise, this paper in Sport Magazine in November of '63, which ultimately gets washed out because Kennedy gets shot. But he publishes this thing and he's like, hey, you have to understand what Latin American players are like. We're living under military rule and all these other things. So you guys can say we can't go play winter ball, but we're going to go play winter ball because we got to feed families, right? And so there's that whole. It's a weird thing where if you're, we'll say Caribbean in this case, or Puerto Rican, where you don't fit into any category and nobody knows who the heck you are or what you eat or the kind of music you want to listen to. There's a real growing process there. And we don't recognize it here in the States, but it's an entire new era of integration.
Yes.
With the black players, 1 player on the field, 2 players in the field, 3, can't have a manager, all these. So you had to break through all of these individual barriers, which when you look, like, it does kind of make sense. It took a while to do all these things. It breaks your heart because you want it to happen. But is that the same kind of story for the Caribbean or Puerto Rican players?
Yes, it happened to Roberto Clemente. Clemente knew he was black when he went to the spring training of Pittsburgh. He didn't know he was black. Yeah, he didn't know. When they told him, no, you cannot eat in the restaurant, no, you cannot go in the bus with the other players, all of those rules, it was very tough for him and tough for every Latino. Orlando Cepeda had a hard time with Arvin Dark. Arvin Dark said that he cannot talk Spanish in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And he cannot play his music in the clubhouse, you know. And when you go to play ball and you have to deal with all these things outside the problems that you have to produce as a ball player, it's very tough for all those Latinos. And I remember that Clemente, who was very vocal, he was not shy. He had a lot of problem at the first. And there's a story that when they were in the bus, they had to stay in the bus and they had to say to a white player what they were going to eat and drink. And that player went to the inside the restaurant and brought the food to the bus. And Roberto told the black players in the Pittsburgh team, no one is going to ask for is going to say what they want. They have to treat us equally. And they respect Roberto. And until Roberto got a car, a station wagon for them to travel, and they could go to restaurants to eat, not eating the bus. But Roberto Clemente was very vocal in those times.
He got to the league so early in the whole Caribbean influx too. Did he integrate the Pirates in terms of black players as well, or was there a black player? Do you know? Was he?
I think the first one was Curtis. Well, the first one was Carlos Benier from Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Then came Kurt Roberts, but in the United States they say that Bernier was not black, and they recognize Kurt Roberts as the first Afro-American. But the first Afro-American, the first Afro-Latino black player with Pittsburgh was Carlos Bernier from Puerto Rico.
So Afro-Latino, I mean, because these labels are so fucking ridiculous, but Caribbean players are American, right? We're all in the North American world, but you're not Americans by any, like, nobody says, hey, you're Americans, right? Even though you are. So that's the funny thing. So you have to be Afro-Latino, you know, or Afro something else, or Latino something else to figure out who the hell you're talking to and what the rules are. And all of that is nonsense too.
Yes.
I mean, it's just crazy.
And you know what that happens too with Nino Escalera with the Cincinnati Reds. He's the first black player with Cincinnati, but Cincinnati says that it is Chuck Harmon.
Right. And again, we don't celebrate those Caribbean integrators. You know, it's just not a thing that we, for whatever reason, we don't consider that at the level of play that it was, because we just talked about you can't play your music, you can't speak Spanish, and everybody's trying to figure everybody out. Oh, and by the way, this guy over here is, you know, Felix Trinidad's great grandpa, and he's gonna whoop your ass, or whatever.
Yes.
You know, he's like, I play baseball. Oh man.
Very difficult times for those. Only those ball players. You can read about it. You can read about all that happened, but you cannot understand 100% what they felt to play in those conditions. But without feeling that, only reading it, you know that it was very tough.
Yeah. It's every time we talk to you, it's shocking how little we talk about, respect the history, and what it took for the guys from Dominican Republic, the guys from Puerto Rico, Cuba, Venezuela. I mean, I have no idea what the Venezuelans had to go through to get up here, you know, but I'm sure it wasn't easy. You know, Panama. I mean, is there anybody before? Who's Panama? Caru's Panamanian, right?
Yeah, but
no, there were Panamanians long before then.
Yeah, Hector Lopez is one. Paul Casanova is Cuban. Hector Lopez for sure is the first. Yes, Hector Lopez is the first Panamanian in the major leagues, and he is black, Latino black.
And yeah, and so like is Rod Carew a Latino black, or is he a Central American black, or is he just a dude named Rod Carew? Like, what the fuck? These things are so
Grew up in New York City, I believe.
yeah.
But he was born in the Panama
Born in
Canal,
Panama, yeah.
Panama Canal, and I think he was brought since kids to the United States. What happens to Alex Rodriguez? They say you're not Dominican, and he says
Right.
no, I'm Dominican, and the Dominicans don't want him. You know, go figure.
Yeah. Manny Machado too, right? Is Manny Machado Puerto Rican? I mean, is he Dominican or is he American? Manny Machado, right?
Nolan Arenado. His
Yeah.
father's from Cuba. His mother's from Puerto Rico. He played for the United States 2 years. Now he's going to play with Puerto Rico. Imagine, it's a melting pot. But the important thing about all this is what we are talking. We have to talk about all these things so people can understand, especially the young people, what happened in those 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And I think too that United States American has to talk more about Jackie Robinson. I think you cannot mention Jackie Robinson only on April 15. You have to talk about Jackie Robinson year round. And I think the figure of Jackie Robinson we are missing. It is like missing, it's retiring slowly. And then in April 15, Jackie Robinson Day, then after that, no more Jackie Robinson. I think we have to talk more about him because if there's a person, a ball player that suffer, it's Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
He defines the word suffering.
His wife is still alive.
That's
crazy. This is how short the time is, everybody. She is still alive.
And she saw all that, and she lived with him, and she went with the game, all the games of Jackie. And after the game, they sat in the room, and she told her what happened, what the people said in the stands, and Jackie Robinson. What Jackie Robinson did is great, but she was great help for him. She was very good, tough wife, very strong wife, and he could succumb or pass all those things because of the help of Rachel Robinson. I admire her so much.
Yeah.
As Jackie Robinson, I admire him so much too.
Yeah.
I heard rumors. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
There were rumors that that Branch Rickey was looking at Silvio Garcia from Cuba to possibly integrate baseball. Were there any Puerto Ricans that he contacted about integrating baseball potentially?
No, only Silvio, Satchel, but no one was more prepared than Robinson.
Right.
Because, first of all, Robinson had a college.
UCLA quarterback, yeah.
Second, he was a great athlete. Third, he was in the Army. As a matter of fact, he had a martial corps in the Army.
Yeah.
So physically and mentally, he was the most prepared. And he was good. And he was a good player. People say, no, that Joshua Gibson was better, that Sacha Pace was better. When you see his record, and he came to the big leagues with 28 years, and the things that he did that first year, he was Rookie of the Year. When he got to the clubhouse of the Dodgers in Ebbets Field, he didn't have locker. They gave him a nail in the wall. A nail. That was the locker. And nobody wanted to be with him. And he has to sleep, eat, go to the movies alone because nobody wanted to be with him. And it was about 2-3 months later than they began to accept him. But Jackie Robinson, he has to be more studied his life, because I have a story that always has impact me. When Jackie Robinson was going to Florida for the spring training, the first spring training, he made a stop in New Orleans with his wife, and he had to take a plane from, I think, from California, Los Angeles, to New Orleans to Florida, to Stanford. And they took them down from the plane because there were no space for them both, because they had to lever the plane. But they kept, he and Rachel were in the room, and they saw when a couple of white people took the spaces, the spaces that they had in the plane. And so they kept waiting and waiting until they went to a hotel in the black section of New Orleans. And the book says that when they entered the room, the sheets of the bed were newspapers.
Oh my gosh.
Man, when I read that, you imagine you going with your wife, recently married, you enter a room in a hotel, and the sheets of the bed are newspapers. That's very sad. That's very sad. So a ball player that had all those things, and he was the rookie of the year. He won the batting title. He was the MVP. He was a great ball player. I think everyone, Latinos and non-Latinos, should talk more about Jackie Robinson. That's my favorite player. Although he only played 10 years, that's my favorite player. What he did, the things that he accomplished with all those things against him. And the other one is Roberto Clemente, not as a ball player, but what he represented outside the lines. Because as you know, Roberto Clemente died at 38 years. He's the only active athlete who died in a humanitarian cause. No other athlete has died like that. So when you pick those two figures, Jackie Robinson and Roberto Clemente, and you study their life, you can learn a lot. Those are the two figures I admire most, and the most that I read about is Jackie Robinson and Roberto Clemente.
You know, just we struggle to understand this time. I was working in Afghanistan with the guy who's my interpreter, and we had a great friendship. I took great care of my interpreters, and one day he approached me and he said, "Pete, can we please go over to see the Afghans so I can eat some food?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Eat food? We have food here like crazy." He's like, "I can't eat most of it." It had never occurred to me, even though I'm super smart in like the cultural side and all that, about like Arabic things and Islamic things. It had never occurred to me to even ask or check on him as he's trying to integrate. And this is a 50-year-old man walking around with a bunch of infantry guys. These are already from another planet. But as compassionate and as aware as I was, it hadn't for 1 second occurred to me that he might need some other kind of help. And it taught me a big lesson in that, like, oh man, it's not my job to understand how good Jorge's condition is. I need to ask you, hey, how are you? Is there anything we need to do? Is there anything you miss? What do you need? And just that thing. So you can even do the same kind of, it's not prejudicial, but you can have the same kind of assumptions where everything's fine and normal for somebody who's joining into your group. But if you don't take the time to welcome them, if you don't take the time to look after them and understand their culture and how to exchange it, yeah, I mean, it's got to be awful for that person. Of course, I want my partner to eat. We're out working hard. We're going on patrols. And so it's a trap we don't think we fall into, but there I was, and I fell into it. And if I fell into it with all the knowledge I have in that world, anybody can.
What year was that, Pete?
2012. 2012. Yeah.
Wow, that's a. Thank you for sharing that experience. That should be very tough.
Well, like my brother's in-laws are from Mexico, and so I've taken that lesson. I apply it to how I talk to them. I talk to them in a normal way, but when we get together, I'm trying to understand what's normal for them. What it's like, and they do the same thing with me. They're like, "How do you do this?" And even though they know all kinds of things about Americans, we're all still learning about each other. This is decades later that they've been in the family. So it's just, when we get judgy of other people, we got to remember this stuff isn't easy to sort out, and those mistakes are going to be the norm. And when we look at especially the black players that came in, there was such social damage in there going in both directions.
Yes.
Someone like Jackie had to be a great man before being a great player. Larry Doby had to be a great man before being a great player, because there's so much asked of that person to adapt in all these individual times and places. And then how do they trust the next person who comes along after sleeping on newspapers, who's like, no, I'm a nice guy. And, it's like, it's that tumult is, it's hard to fathom how big that was.
Yes, indeed. Wow. Thank you for telling that story.
Oh, thanks, man.
Larry Doby.
Yeah.
That's another guy that suffered. I read the story of Larry Doby, and as I remember, when the boss picked him up in his hotel, he has to be dressed up as a ball player. He didn't dress in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
So they picked him in the sidewalk, and he was already ready to play. That's another person, a low ball player that we don't talk too much about him, Larry Doby. Maybe because he's the second one.
Second one. Yep. Yeah. And just a few weeks later, really, same time.
Yeah.
What about who are the other Caribbean players who have that pioneer badge, who maybe ought to be considered more and probably are Hall of Famers? I mean, Clemente's in, right? But who are some of the? Felipe, I think, has a strong case just on his whole baseball life. He and by the way, he not only spoke for a lot of Latino players, he also left. He's like, hey, screw you, Giants, I'm leaving. And they're like, wait, hold on. And then they had to learn how to deal with the guy. He didn't have to stay. He's like, I'll go become a doctor. I'll go back home. And there's that whole learning process. So if Felipe is one, who else stands out? Like, who else should we be looking at and putting into the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Felipe for one. Not too much of that era. From Puerto Rico, none. I'm sure of that, because Clemente was the first superstar. Well, the first superstar was Orlando Cepeda, because he was the Rookie of the Year, and he's in the Hall of Fame. Roberto Clemente. Cuba, because they shut down the league in 1960. They got Mini Miñoso. There's only one Cuban who is in the Hall of Fame, voted by the report, by the writers, Tony Perez. All other Cubans are by the Veterans Committee.
Jose Mendez and Torian,
Yeah. And but Cuba has produced so many good ball players, but sadly, what happened in 1960, but that shut down the factory. Although they kept playing and producing a lot of good players, and they won the WIC. They look very good. They play well.
First, that first WBC, they were runner-up.
Yeah. So, but what regarding your question, I don't think there's too many that you can think this guy deserves to be in the Hall of Fame besides Felipe alone.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's Felipe alone only.
I was surprised you didn't say. I thought you would say Perucho Cepeda.
But he didn't play in the big leagues.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're talking about players that a person that played in the big leagues. Perucho didn't play. Coimbra didn't play in the big leagues.
Right.
That would be Coimbra batted every place. Canada, Venezuela, Mexico, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. He was a star in every place, but he didn't play in the big leagues. That would be another possible Hall of Famer. He would have the chance. I think Perucho and Coimbra will be two of the greatest. And Luis Marquez, but Luis Marquez got a chance, but it was very tough for him.
Yeah. Coimbra played as many years in the Negro Leagues as Jose Mendez did.
No. I think Coimbra played 4 or 5 years.
I think Mendez might have only played 4 or 5 years.
Because that's why he didn't get in the Hall of Fame, because he had only a few very few seasons.
Yeah, Mendez played 7 years in the Negro Leagues.
Yeah.
I was thinking
If Coimbre would have played 7 years, maybe he would be in the Hall of Fame. You know who was good? Tetelo Vargas from Dominican Republic.
He died in Cuba, right? Or died in Puerto Rico, I mean, right?
Yes, he died in Puerto Rico. He married in Puerto Rico. He has his family living in Puerto Rico, and he was buried in Guayama, Puerto Rico. But he was a great ball player, and he and Coimbre were in the ballot for in the 2006 special election. They selected 16 Negro Leaguers, and in the first stage, Tetelo Vargas and Coimbre were in that first ballot. In the second ballot, they were eliminated, gone, yes, because of the time. But Tetelo was another great. The Dominican, they call him the Dominican Deer.
Yeah. Yeah, played everywhere. I think he played for Concordia in Venezuela too.
Concordia. I mean, he played in Dominican, obviously Dominican Republic, in Puerto Rico. He was a great star with Guayama and with Caguas. And he's in the Puerto Rican Hall of Fame. And I think Tetelo is in that group of Coimbre. I believe that he's in the group of Coimbre and Perucho.
Yeah, definitely.
I wanted to put a picture up here real quick, just because it's fun. It's because I'm always looking in the old newspapers, much like you are, Jorge, and also Brian's out there too. But I love the way they explain the game. So here's a picture, and it says the Liniment League. Everybody, nice. And then like down there at the bottom, they point off to Puerto Rico, but it just kind of gives you a map of where all the spring training, the Catalina Islands era of spring training, and I just love the name Liniment League and how they explain it all. And yeah, there's Puerto Rico, right? Because why wouldn't you go to Puerto Rico if you were somewhere, from Cincinnati where it's going to be cold and snowy?
So that map is from 1936.
How did you know that?
Because it says Cincinnati, Puerto Rico. And that was the year that Cincinnati came to Puerto Rico.
This is the level of, wow, that's incredible, man. I had to look at the damn newspaper to learn that.
Wasn't McPhail with the Reds then?
Yes, general manager.
Yeah.
And McPhail was the owner of the Yankees in 1947. Yes.
Yeah. That's a whole other thing, too, the spring training history of all these places, and where teams went to go do these things. Yeah. Hey, we've been at this for about an hour, so I guess let's figure out how to wrap this up. Brian, what do you want to say in closing?
I just appreciate Jorge coming on and have someone I can talk to about all the stuff I read about Latin American baseball.
I enjoy it a lot. Frankly, this is the second time, and it gets better every time. So
yes.
So I would like to be. You decide more often. Whenever you think I should be, you just write me a note. And I will gladly.
We want you to come on all the time. We want to just continue these conversations, and we'll figure out. Yeah, because we love it too, and we want to be a place where we can be a voice, at least for Puerto Rican baseball, but also your knowledge is so over the whole thing. And I mean, you're talking to two dudes that know a lot about baseball, and we're both just like, wait, what, all the time, because it's great to find discover a whole new history that I know I don't know much about. Brian knows way more than I do. He's written a book about it, and I hope we get that book out soon. But it's incredible, man. I'm not going to speak for Brian, but I'll speak for me. I really enjoy these conversations as well. Brian, you want to say anything in closing before I wrap it up for real?
No, man, I just said it.
All right. Jorge, thank you very much. Anything you want to say in closing?
Thank you, Pete and Frank. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here in your program. And as I said, anytime you just write to me and we'll do the third show, okay?
We will. All right. Stand by. I'll say goodbye to you guys offline. Everybody else, that's 3 shows today. If you like this, here's the deal. Subscribe. YouTube smashes my show all the time. You see all these big shows saying the same thing. That's how you help. You subscribe, maybe even kick a little money our way. Anyhow, thank you all very much for watching either way. Thank you for hanging out with us about baseball from the Latin American world. And thank you, too, and once again for coming on the show.